Good morning or good afternoon, Tigers. Today we'll be watching a video on Quizzette 810. This will be the last Quizzette of this year, so enjoy it. Please write your last name, comma, first name. Today's date, which is May 22nd. And I'm going to say I am a blue Tiger because I'm recording in blue class. For number 1 on this day, it is the same concept that you guys have been practicing on the previous Quizzettes of an input value and getting an output value. Here they give you 2 input values for x. The first one is 0, the second one is -2. The nice thing about this Quizette is that it uses SMP6. It's very neat and it's very precise. So go ahead and write down the equation on the first line. Y equals -3/2 x plus 4. Now we must recognize that we are going to input 0 where that x is. So instead of writing y equals -3/2 x, we're going to write y equals -3/2 0 plus 4. 0 times anything is 0. You are left with y equals +4. So your input value is 0. As a result, your output value is 4. Your next input value is -2. So you do the same thing. You write your equation on the first line, y equals -3/2 x plus 4. And now, instead of writing x, you will write parentheses -2 over 1. The reason why I'm having you write it this way is because when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. And you need that placeholder, that place value of 1, in order to multiply straight across neatly. Now, -3 times -2 is +6. 2 times 1 is 2. And your 4 stays the same. Notice that when I write my y and my equal sign, I try to keep it in the same spot. Make sure you try to do that so that you're mathematically precise. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Plus 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. So for an input value of -2, your output value is 7. Number 2, you can easily do on your own, but I want you to do the third box and the fourth box and then go back to the second box. So let's look at number 3. What is the y-intercept for y equals -3/2 x plus 4? Your y-intercept, remember, when you have an equation in the point-slope formula, you have y equals mx plus b. And whatever's in that plus b spot, that is going to be your y-intercept. So in this case, my plus b spot is this plus 4. But you can't just say y-intercept is 4. What I want you to write is a point, 0, 4. That is your y-intercept. Now for number 2, what is the slope for y equals -3/2 x plus 4? Remember, this m represents your slope. So whatever the coefficient is in front of the variable x, that is your slope. And in this case, the coefficient that's in front of the variable x is -3/2. So that is m, or our slope. Remember that slope is rise over run. And when you rise, you either go up or down, which is the y-axis. And when you run, you either go to the right or to the left. Now, that negative can be on the 3 or the 2, but I will always put the negative on the number that's on top. So instead of going down 2 or running to the left 2, I'm going to go down 3. And what's the positive direction for 2 for running? To the right. So when you're doing the slope, you have to go down 3 units and to the right 2 units. That is the rise over run. Number 5, what is the rise for y equals -3/2 x plus 4? Well, I just explained it in the previous example. Our rise is going to be -3, which technically means that you're going down -3. Number 6, what is the run for y equals -3/2 x plus 4? Your run is the number on the bottom of the fraction of the slope, which is 2. And that means you're going in the right direction. Number 7, solve for x. You know what? Let's go back to the second box before we move on to number 7. So my starting point is my y-intercept. Look at number 3. My y-intercept is 0, 4. So I'm going to go to 0, 4, and I'm going to put a bold point on 0, 4. Now I'm going to use my slope, and I know that my slope is -3/2. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 3, and then I'm going to go over or run 2. Now I have 2 points. I have my red starting point, and I have my green ending point. Now, by definition, you can create a line using 2 points. I can connect those 2 points, and I have the line of the graph, or the graph of the line. Right? Now, any good mathematician writes the equation of the line on top of the line. So in this case, I would write y equals -3/2 x plus 4. I know that's kind of hard to see, so I will rewrite it in blue. Now the next step in 8th grade will be for you to graph 2 lines on the same graph. So later on in 8th grade, they're going to give you 2 equations. They're going to ask you to graph both equations on the same chart, and then they're going to ask you for the intersecting point between those 2 lines, and that's going to be maybe like 2 weeks of 8th grade. You're already prepared for that. Just keep that in mind. Now our last question. There's a property that I showed you in 7th grade when it comes to parentheses having a coefficient outside of it. If you remember correctly, that was called the distributive property. You will need to use a distributive property like adding and subtracting in 8th grade. It's going to be everywhere in 8th grade. So -5 times 1, -5 times -5x, 5 times -8x, 5 times -2. And then the next side of the equal sign will not change. It'll stay the same. So you can already rewrite -4x minus 8x. And remember, we don't subtract. We can do the addition of the opposite. So you can already change that to the addition of the opposite on the other side. You can even combine like terms on the other side. -4x plus -8x is just same sign, add and keep, -12x. So we made the other side a little easier. Now let's look at our arrows and our distributive property. -5 times 1 is -5. -5 times -5x is positive 25x. 5 times -8x is -40x. And lastly, 5 times -2 is -10. Now you can change that -10 or that -10 to addition of the opposite, which still makes that 10 negative. Now let's combine like terms. I have a -10 that I can combine with a positive 5. You owe someone $5 and you owe them $10. How much do you owe them altogether? -15. Now I can combine 25x and -40x. Those have different signs, so I have to subtract them from each other. 40 minus 25 is 15x. Keep the sign of the bigger number and it's negative. Then you are exact. Now, we have a lot of negatives in this equation. We have x's on both sides of the equation, and we have -15 on the left side, and we want to move it to the right side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 15 to both sides. Now, this is where a lot of people will mess up, and they'll think -12x plus 15, oh, that's just +3. But that's not the case. You can combine a term that has a letter with a term that does not have a letter. So on the right side, you have -12x plus 15. That's what it comes out to. And on the, on the left-hand side, I said the left-hand side for this side, but that's the right side. The left-hand side, I'm left with -15 15x. Now, I want to get all of my x's on one side of the equation and all of my constants on the other side of the equation. So I'm going to move that negative 12x to the other side. What's the opposite of subtracting by 12? Adding by 12. And what I do on one side, I do to the other side. I'm left with 15 on the right, and I'm left with negative 3x on the left. You already know what to do here. The opposite operation of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is 1. But I'm not going to write 1x. I'm just going to write x. A positive integer divided by a negative integer is negative. And you will have negative 5 as your answer. All right, Tigers, good luck on this Quizzette. If you have questions, feel free to rewatch the video or raise your hand and I will help you.